Okay, peeps, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over the Grayscale Trusts, Bitcoin, and AMC. So with that being said, let's get it. All right, so we're going to get into the Grayscale Trusts, but before we do, we're first going to get into the corn of the bit and talk about that because we might be having a reversal signal here on a lower time frame. So usually, generally speaking, I don't usually look at the 4-hourly time frame unless I'm looking to do a swing trade, okay? So when we're talking about something like crypto, generally speaking, I usually only look at the daily, weekly, and perhaps even the biweekly on more rare occasions. So the thing I want to point out here about the 4-hourly time frame, you guys can see we had a golden cross back here, but then it failed. So you guys can see that the golden crosses that we have are actually pretty rare. So we had one back here, one back here, one back here, and this is on the 4-hourly time frame, mind you. So this is going back 2 months. We only had a handful of them. So what I'm thinking is starting in the morning, we're going to put in, basically it's our goal to put in $50 a day into native crypto at this point. So the daily time frame golden crosses are actually much more rare. So the last one we had was back in May. Then before that, we had one all the way in January. So pretty much what we plan on doing here is if it confirms this golden cross in the next 3 hours, we'll start buying native crypto. But then if it has another death cross and goes lower, we'll just simply stop buying because we're still kind of looking for the bottom. It doesn't really look like the bottom may be in yet, but it's possible it might be in. Again, based on the bounce of these wicks, it could be going up. But then again, this candle right here, this one, is lower than these previous candle closes, which is generally speaking pretty bearish. So anyways, with that being said, let's get into the content for the Grayscale Trusts. So LTCN, it looks maybe like it wants to find a bottom here. It's hard to say, but you guys can see we have 4 weekly closes kind of sitting around the same level at the red EMA. Again, this is kind of bouncing off this trend line. So it's possible a bottom might be forming here. We saw something kind of similar back here where it was just kind of flatlining. And of course, these higher lows were moving up and then it took off, but we're not seeing that here. But however, the fact that this is not piercing to the downside is, and it's just kind of moving sideways, could potentially signal an accumulation before a rip to the upside. So support zones we're looking for here is 13. I'd say about $13 to $15, and then you're looking at roughly somewhere between 17 to 18 along this trend line. Then above beyond that, first target would be 25 to 27, and then once again the swing high 54. Of course, beyond that we're looking at 75, 100 to 135, and then somewhere between $300 to $400 respectively. So from here to resistance, a 54% gain, and then moving back up to this swing high. That is way too far. I did not mean to make it that high. We would then be looking at roughly about 187% move, so a little bit more than double your money. If you manage to get it in the support zone down here, roughly about 100%, and then 300% move at this point. So I do suspect that trend line probably will hold on LTCN because, again, it's been holding for a very long time. So BCHG looks very similar to LTCN, just kind of sitting there at these lows, not really going down, but not really going up. That could potentially also mean that Bitcoin's about ready to move to the upside because, generally speaking, the rest of the market does move with Bitcoin. So in terms of support, we're looking at first 680 to 770, and then somewhere along this trend line. So I would say maybe right around $5 to $6, somewhere in there. We're not going to count this resistance right here that we've been trading in for so long because it's still relatively recent. So we're going to look for this level up here, so 18 to 20, and then $24 respectively. I mean, I suppose if you guys wanted this level, you could get it. That would be 10 to 1280. But me personally, this is crypto. We're looking for big moves. We're not necessarily looking for little small moves. So from that support down there all the way up to the swing high is about 236%. However, if you just simply wrote it from support to this resistance and said, no, I don't think, you're thinking to yourself, no, I don't think it's going to go back up to 24, you could always take profit here at this resistance at $20, which is a 178% move. Then we'll just say roughly about the convergence of that trend line and the support to $20, 250%, and then all the way up to $24, 314% move. So HZEN, this one is still within the wedge. That's a bullish pattern. Falling wedge is bullish. We have had a bounce off of this support and above the EMA, so that's also bullish. Support's still going to be sitting roughly around 4 to 420. You could use the EMAs as support, which is right around $4.70 to $5, but in this particular situation, I wouldn't be using it because we're within a wedge, and if it smacks the top of this wedge, it could always get sold back down. In order to get a firm move up, we would need to get a break and a close out of this wedge, and we haven't seen that yet. So resistance, $6.90 to $8, and then the high up there, $10.50. So if I just measure it from the current price to the resistance, 60%, and then to the swing high up here, 105%. However, if you wait for a pullback, or you already got in on the pullback, depends on which person you are, whether you got in now or decided to wait until support, 99% move and then 158% move respectively on this one. HZEN does look a little bit more bullish in my opinion than BCHG and LTCN at this time. So ETCG, we did get this close below this line and all these candle bodies here. I suspect this thing is going to go lower. As a matter of fact, this does look like a shooting star candle. So I would be aiming probably for the top of this support as initial support, so about $10. And especially if Bitcoin does get rejected and goes even lower than the previous low that we saw on it, then likely this thing will go lower. So your range here is going to be $8.80 to $10. I'd be looking for the swing high up here as a resistance point. I suppose you could look for the bottom of this resistance at $17.50 as well. So assuming that it does get just to the top of the support, you'd be looking at roughly about 77 to 95%. Just so you all know, this resistance here, if that's a target you want, is 1320 to 1580. ETH. So it did come back down to support exactly as we expected. There was a potential double top here. That's exactly how it played out. I don't think it played out because it was a double top. That's just a technical pattern. I think it was simply because of the fact that Bitcoin pulled back. And we haven't seen the listing of the actual listings of the spot Ether ETFs yet. So once again, anywhere between $25 to $29 is going to be support. The cup and handle target here, as you guys can see, is all the way up here at the previous all-time highs. So that's roughly about $47. Again, we have a cup, a handle, and then this big fat green candle, which broke out of it. So if I were just to, let's say, measure it from the current price to the cup and handle target, 64%, and then from, let's say, a little bit lower end support to the cup and handle target, roughly about 82%. Phil G, I mean, this does look like it wants to go a little bit lower. We could get stopped at maybe 56, but I'm still looking for 37 to 40 as a target here, a potential buy zone. That's just me personally. You guys can do whatever you want to do. So inverse head and shoulders pattern here. Didn't exactly get the breakout I was looking for, but the target would have been or still could be $300. The previous all-time high is just about $400 at that level. So respectively, roughly about 330% gain and a 470% gain. However, if you manage to squeeze in some shares down here at support, 650% and 900% respectively, just to show you guys just how much more this could actually drop. It seems like it's not that much, but it's actually quite a bit. So you could still be looking at minus 45% before it does ultimately bounce. GBAT still sitting in support. I would say, now looks like a pretty good time to get in. It could always go lower. That's possible. So if it does, support would then be between about 450 to 520. This could also be a descending triangle pattern, which is generally speaking bearish, meaning it's going to go lower. But we do have previous support here, so that could potentially counter it, and it could just go higher. It's hard to say at this point. But the target I'd be looking for is the previous all-time high, so $32 all the way up there at the top. So from $9 to $32, you'd be looking at 250% move. GLIV, once again, this thing is coming below this previous candle right here. As you guys can see, that is an early warning sign in my opinion. This might go lower. So it could get stopped at these candles here, but I would wager it's probably going to come back down to support. So again, that is roughly about 11.50 to 15 bucks. We have an inverse head and shoulders pattern here as well, and the breakout target for that is $84, whereas the all-time high is 80. So the downside risk here is, I hate it when it does that. So roughly about 45%. As you guys can see, it's still quite a bit. So to the all-time high, 535%, and to the target there, 570% move. G-Link, this thing just taps support, but in my opinion, I would be waiting for it to actually get a little bit lower. I want to see it kind of close right around these candle tops right here at 65. Personally, I would feel much more comfortable getting in at that price than where it currently sits, because you have a lot of red candles here and it just doesn't look very bullish in my opinion. So if I were just to say, let's get in around 75 at the red EMA, ride it to the top, which again is $220. That's a 192% move. GSAW, this one actually looks quite bullish. So we got 3 days left, but if it closes above this trend line, it is probably going to go higher. That would be my guess. Okay. So the reason why I still would not touch this, even if it is going to break out, is because if it dumps, it's going to be really ugly. It's a 63% drop to get back down to support, and it could potentially get shot down from the highs, especially considering Bitcoin is dumping. So about a 30% move to the upside. The risk is just not worth it, in my opinion. However, if it comes back down to support and you manage to get in, it would be roughly about a 207% move. Again, that support is between 169 to 203, just to give you guys an idea of what the potential Fibonacci move would be. So again, from the swing high to the swing low, if it breaks all-time highs, about $830 would potentially be the target on that one. GXLM, yeah, this one, it does look like it's wanting to head lower. So we got below all of these candle lows here. You can see we got these lows, tried to break out, then we got lower lows, tried to hold up, and now we're going even lower. So I suspect it's going to hit $25. Again, that white line down there. So from there to the previous swing high, you'd be looking at about 160 or 176% move. Again, that's at $70. So resistance below that, in case you guys want to know, is $53 to $58. Mana, it looks like we might be having a double bottom here. So one bottom, two bottoms. Then maybe potentially a breakout, although it's hard to say if this is actually going to break out. So $17.50 to about $20 is the support here. And then the all-time high is 70. I mean, it's perfectly within that buy zone at this point. So if you guys wanted to get in, not financial advice, but if I was going to get in this, I would get in now and just DCA if it comes down. But again, your money, you can do what you want. So 264% move on Mana. Zcash, same thing. I'd be looking to get in now. If it comes lower, I just simply add to it. So the only kicker here is that we have not had a close above this resistance, so it is still not considered to be support. But I mean, it did get a break of this trend line, so there is that. So currently 435 to 510. I'm actually just going to say this is support because it did have a pretty strong bounce here. And then the swing high is 10.25, so you got $8 and $9.70 at that resistance. From here to the previous swing high, 110% move. Okay, so now let's talk about AMC. A lot of people were wondering about GME. We're not going to go over that today in this video, but we'll go over that in a future subsequent video, okay? So AMC, as you guys can see, earnings is coming up. It's literally just right around the corner. It's like a month from now. So there's a lot of stuff we're looking at here, all right? So we have, basically we have this massive falling wedge, as you guys can see here, and it does look like we got some kind of breakout. So it has confirmed the breakout of the wedge. Again, the target is way up here at $12. That's pretty much right above this previous wick that you guys can see here. So we had this basically bullish divergence, price moving down, MACD, and now the RSI moving up. So that told us early on this thing potentially could be about to reverse, which is kind of why we decided to load so much money into this. Just so y'all know, we do still have our positions. So you can see here 910 shares valued at about $6,000 flat. We're down a little bit, but again, we haven't been adding in recent weeks. We just kind of said, okay, this is the amount we're going to put in, and that's it. And we're just going to sit back and wait. So one of the other most important things I want to show you guys here is the MACD on the monthly time frame. So MACD on the monthly time frame, you guys can see we got the golden cross down here. We're about to get one also on the RSI, and the histogram has turned green. Okay. So the other important thing as well is that we also do have even though this is a red candle, this is a higher close than these previous candles here, which is a bullish sign. Okay. That means it's breaking structure levels to the upside. That's a good sign for the bulls. So last time we got a golden cross on the MACD was way back here. Okay. August 2020. Interestingly enough, this was 4 years ago, almost exactly this time, during a halving year for Bitcoin, literally months before Bitcoin would go to all-time highs. And what happened when that happened? With AMC, Bitcoin went to all-time highs right around here. And guess what? AMC also went to all-time highs, and AMC also had a MACD golden cross right around the same time frame this time 4 years ago. I know that sounds extremely weird, but you can see this vertical white line here, August 2020. What time is it right now? July 2024. We just had a MACD golden cross actually, if I zoom out here, you can see that the first green histogram bar we got was in June 2024, and the MACD golden cross confirmed in July of 2024, literally 4 years later. And what happened after this? So we kind of just went sideways for a few months, and then January 2021 came, and then boom, popped off to the moon for 6 months. And the gains on this thing was just stupid. I mean, from the absolute bottom to the absolute top, 3,700% move. Went from $10 all the way up to $400. I mean, that's absolutely bonkers. So what are we looking at for the end of the year? Well, basically, Bitcoin's supposed to hit its all-time highs by the end of the year. Okay, right around that time, that should be the cycle timing for Bitcoin to go past 75,000. You have the presidential elections, which Trump is, in my opinion, I'd be willing to bet $5,000 on this, that Trump will get elected this year. I'd be willing to put my money where my mouth is. Okay. So you have that. You have the midterm elections. So generally speaking, markets love it when there's a mixed Congress. However, we have like the illegal immigrant situations. So to get some of the underlying issues of the country out of the way, I think it would be a good idea to have a red Congress, at least for the first 2 years. A lot of people are not going to like me saying that, but that's how I feel about it. So we have that. We also have the potential of Fed rate cuts, which is bullish for the economy. That means it's cheaper to borrow, cheaper to buy stuff for both businesses and individuals. So it would make sense that by about December of this year, we should see, in theory, we should see AMC, the Grayscale Trusts, and Bitcoin all going to all-time highs. So next thing I want to go over is the daily time frame here. So we're going over the daily time frame. You guys can see that we got quite a few green days here. So the key point here is we want to get over 580 on the daily. If we can get over 580, this thing is probably going to start ripping pretty hard to the upside. The next major target would be basically pretty much, if we can get past 580 to $6, we're probably going to head straight up to 12 is what it looks like. But the last and most important thing that I want to point out here is the gaps on AMC. So these things, generally speaking, on the indexes almost always get filled, okay? Like 98, 99% of the time on the NASDAQ, on the S&P, on the Dow Jones, the Russell, even on things like gold, silver, platinum, oil. Usually these things always get filled on some kind of futures contract or the underlying index or whatever the case, okay? So I'm expecting exactly the same thing to happen with AMC. So the gaps, once again, are between $16.60 to $20, and then you have your bigger gap up here at 37 to 43. I think that the first gap could probably be filled within the next few months. I think the second gap, it may take probably till the end of the year maybe to see the second gap get filled. That would just be my guess. But of course, that's not financial advice. There's no guarantees. AMC could go to $100 in the next month. It could go to, $10 in the next month. It could stay flat for the next month. We don't know. Okay. It really kind of just depends on a whole bunch of different things, including macroeconomics, unfortunately, at this time. So, anyways, hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see y'all later. Peace.